afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the hearing to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Ron Merritt. I'll be the chairperson this afternoon, and introducing the panel members, Mr. Ray Mazacot to my left, and to his left is Kent Seelan. And representing the city is Matthew Harling, and our recording secretary is Katie Sutherland. We'll be hearing application for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and will limit discussions to those matters. The statements that the applicant and or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn in testimony, and anybody speaking to these matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it, along with the city administration. We make our decisions based on the evidence provided at the hearing and issue a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decision in respect to application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to application for an exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the board's order. In respect to the hearing this afternoon, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant. Following the swearing in, we'll then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the other applicant may have, and then will be the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each party will have the opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all evidence about the application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket. This afternoon, the session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decision. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live stream recorded and will be part of the public record. I'll ask our secretary to swear in the assessor and Mr. Slaughter.
Please state your name. Do you swear that the evidence you have to present is the truth, the whole truth, and the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And do you swear?
Also,
So please state your name.
Rod Slaughter.
Do you swear that the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, I understand we have a vacant industrial property, so we'll go according to the docket that we have. So item number 1 is on Marion Street, no civic address. So Mr. Harding, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The roll number is 0603244800. The address is on Marion Street. The owner is Domo Gasoline Corporation Limited. The 2020 assessed value based on reference date April 1st, 2018 is $311,000. The property type is vacant or Bindu, vacant industrial. Property is zoned for M3 manufacturing heavy, and the land area is 39,956 square feet. If you look at page 2 of my brief, you'll just see a photo of the subject property, and the parcel of the boundaries of the subject property. Marion Street is just right above. I didn't get the full picture in there, but that's Marion is right above. Page 3 of my brief, just information about the zoning. Again, it's zoned M3 manufacturing heavy, and just a brief description of what heavy manufacturing entails. And again, just a parcel boundary of the subject property. Page 4 of my brief is just some information about sales and just the cost evaluation summary. We're assessing the land at $310,000. If you look below the bottom, we do have a detached structure on the parcel of land. It's just for a fence. Reduces $1,000 worth of assessment value is adding to that detached structure. So just adding the 310 to the with $1,000 for the detached structure, the chain link fence, $311,000 for currently assessed at. If you look at page 5 of the brief, you'll see a list of my land sale comparables. Farthest left, you'll see my subjects with comparison to that. My land sale comparables range from 14,323 square feet to 63,456 square feet. You'll see the zonings are all N3 manufacturing. You'll see below the land influences from my comparables. And if you look further below, you'll see the sales details, you'll see the sale dates, as well as the sale price per square foot. We are using a model rate of $7.76 a square foot for this parcel. And yeah, so just like my comparables are fairly close to the subject property. I have some on Marion, Mission, Archibald, so very close to the subject property. And again, yeah, we're using 39,000 square feet, 39,956 square feet at a rate of $7.76, which gives us the 311,000. If you look at page 6 of my briefs, you'll just see some photos of my comparable sales. Comparable 1 is just on Plinkett and Mission. If you look below comparable 2, that's on Marion Street, not too far from the subject property. A little bit slighter shape from the subject property, but close to the subject property's location. You'll see on page 7, comparable sale 3. And page 8 of my brief, you'll see comparable sale 4, which is also very close to the subject property. Page 9 of my brief, you'll just see the classification liability, and just the breakdown of the land value, and then the $1,000 for the building value assessed, and then the total assessment of $311,000. Page 10 and 11 of my brief, there's some information about the Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. And that is my presentation, and I ask the board to confirm the value of $311,000. Thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Slaughter, questions of the assessor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Harling. I just had a couple questions about some of the land comparisons that you mentioned. Comparable number 1 that you have on your page 5, you're in agreement that that is on the corner of a rather high-traffic location, Archibald and Plinkett, and it's 1/3 of the size of the subject property.
That is correct, yes.
And you'd agree with the concept that all other things being equal, typically a smaller size per square foot results in a higher price per square foot?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Or a smaller size results in
Economies of scale, yes.
economies of scale. Okay. That's all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mazakoff?
No questions.
Kent, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I just have a couple. I guess this is a vacant lot.
That's correct, yes.
So was there anything on this property at all before?
Not to my knowledge, unless there's
Okay.
Just that sign.
the sign, yes, there's been just looking at
It's a
advertising sign, yeah.
And it does have a chain fence around it?
Yeah, I believe it's still there. I know you can't really see it in the photo here, but I look kind of at the street view and you can kind of still see it around the perimeter. I should have added that, sorry, I didn't add that, so. Unless it is gone, I haven't inspected the exact
And
site.
I see that you've done a cost report in regards to the...
Yes, yes,
okay.
exactly, yeah.
So, okay. And you're coming in at the value of, per square foot, $7.76?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm just looking at the comparables, and which, the subject is, 40,000 square feet. You know what the frontage is offhand?
I do not have that information on the
Okay,
top.
but the total is that figure. So in the comparables here, which one or what comparable do you think is similar to the subject property?
Well, I mean, like I said, the comparable one, it is small in the subject property, however, it is
Yeah.
close to the subject property. Again, the shape is a little bit off, so that's another difference between that, but in terms of, if you're looking at size, comparable 2 would be very close, obviously in size. Same, it's in Marion, so it's a little bit, it's also on Marion as well. Let me just double check that one. Oh, sorry, I meant comparable 2 would be the closest. I feel it's closest to the subject property, closest in size. Again, it is a bit irregular shape compared to the subject property, however, that would be the one I would think would be the closest in my opinion, so.
And whereabouts is Mission in regards to the subject property? Close
Mission,
by?
yeah, it would be maybe 5-10 minutes maximum away from it. It's just down Panet Road.
Yeah.
which is really close to Hop and Marion, so.
And comparable number 4 is on, the same street as the subject.
Yes.
It is, bigger, etc. I'm just wondering, I'm looking at, the final value per, or on the comparables, the rate per square foot. And, I see that 3 and 4 are considerably, are less than, the subject's evaluation. So I don't know, is it model generated, the $7.76 per square
I mean,
foot?
it's not like, we obviously take actual sales in the market to create our model, so we're not just, we're actually using sales to actually come up with this model, yeah, so that equates to how we come up with our rates, so yes. But it is model generated though, yes, from actual sales though, so,
And
or
I
similar
s-
properties, so.
And I see number 4, it was a sale dated in 12.
Yeah, so it's an older sale,
Okay,
yes.
so the older
Yes.
sale. So the only current one you have is comparable number 1.
That would be the most up-to-date one, correct, yes.
Okay, I thank you. Mr. Slaughter, we're ready for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a little bit of rebuttal information, just minor information.
Yes? And you are rebutting what?
The comparisons that the city
Okay,
presented.
good.
Would you like me to go through that first before the?
Sure. Sure. Because you are going to rebut that, so.
Or at least bring some more information for the.
Yeah. But you are rebutting the square foot or the comparables.
That's correct. Yeah, this is directly
Okay.
related to the city's evidence.
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit more information for the board's reference, because we'll be hearing about a number of sales in the market and average sale
We
prices.
might as well spend a little time so
Yeah.
that we digest everything.
Exactly, so just for the board's reference, the very first comparison the city has, it's about a third of the size of the subject property, and it's a corner lot, which is typically considered a superior feature, at the corner of Archibald, which is a fairly high-traffic location, and Plinkett. In my mind, I think there has to be adjustments made to a property such as this in comparison to a property like the subject. On the second page, the second comparison, you'll see an overhead map. This is about an acre square foot site with long frontage. You'll see it with the star actually, not the red dot, but the star. And it's just east of Archibald. So this is the section of Marion just as you pass Archibald. And it was purchased by the owner of the adjacent property, which was acquired 1 year earlier. That's the one with the red dot on it. So this is part of an assembly of land to eventually accommodate the development of a 63,500 square foot industrial flex complex. Assemblage sales are something that both the IAAO and the Appraisal Institute, they certainly don't say disregard them, but they say treat them with caution, because there's often motivations involved, especially if one of the purchases was done beforehand and they're purchasing the adjacent lot. So in my mind, as soon as I saw the square foot price of this property, it made me think that does not seem right. And I think, in my opinion, it's because of the nature of that transaction. I think it has to be taken into consideration when trying to assign a value to the subject property. The third comparison is on Mission, and shortly after purchase, it was developed with an industrial warehouse property. Some interesting information about that sale. It was actually purchased about a year before the transaction the assessor mentioned. And what happened in between that time is the site was remediated for some environmental concerns and completely fenced, and then it was sold again. It was kind of an improved version of the property. And lastly, the comparison number 4 is actually the closest to the subject in proximity. It's directly across the street. And it's a slightly larger property that was purchased back in 2012 for immediate development by, I believe, Federated Co-op. And there's a 15,276 square foot industrial property now located on that site. Now, what I'm going to be describing in my direct evidence, Mr. Chairman, is that certain events, or at least the thought that certain events would occur, in the owner's mind, changed the development potential of sites in this location. So this sale occurred before what I'm going to describe started to affect properties in this location. Just wanted to point that out. I think that's all we need to talk about right now, Mr. Chairman, so I thank you very much.
I'll just see, Mr. Harling, do you have any questions in regards to rebut?
No, I think that's okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Massacott?
No questions.
Mr. Sulan?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Slaughter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have our direct presentation. If I could ask you to turn to that. On page 2 is a photograph of the property from Marion, looking south. So you can see it's basically just grassland. There is a sign at the far side of the site. Otherwise, it's just bare land, and it has been for some time. Now on page 3, you'll see an overhead shot, and you'll see where it's located on Marion. It's quite a ways down from Archibald. And in my mind, Archibald is a higher traffic street, and as you move further down Marion, you'll find it less developed, coming towards Lagimodiere. And at the bottom of page 3, you can see it a little clearer. Now the property just to the east of the subject, the exact same size property, that is also owned by the owner of this property, Royal Canadian, and that site is improved with a small Domo kiosk. So Mr. Harling had described the property. There's not much else to add about this, except there's two interesting points I think we need to consider in our application of other comparable sale prices to determine the value of the subject. One is that the sign that they have on site, the income that was reported to the city as of 2017, it had been $7,000 per annum. This is an indication of what the owner describes as kind of a deterioration of the developable potential and the traffic along this location in the last number of years. That the tenant that was leasing that sign decided to vacate, unless a significant reduction in the rent was achieved. And by October 2017, basically the owner and the tenant agreed to cut the rent over half of what it was, down to $3,000 per annum. The second point is, and this is something that the owner was very concerned about last cycle and still is that this section of Marion, which just between Dawson, so not Archibald, but specifically between Dawson and Lagimodiere, had been in a very uncertain position, and in our opinion still kind of is. It's in limbo. And the reason is, if I could ask you to turn to page 30, or sorry, 29, you'll see an article from the Free Press. It's dated late 2015. And what this has to do with, Mr. Chairman, is that the article is really an interview with Matt Allard, the St. Boniface councillor, and his concerns that he was hoping to scrap this plan for a massive development in St. Boniface down at the Archibald side, in this industrial area, with an overpass and then some expropriation of properties. But part of that plan, if you'll turn to page 30, is that the city was intending on linking Marion directly to Dugald via Panet as a benefit to traffic flow, and said the new design will include pedestrian and cycling paths on the revamped corridor. So if you turn to page 30, well, it's better shown on page 33, you'll see exactly where they intend to basically direct the traffic flow. And you can imagine the owner of the property and the location it is being very concerned about this. So you'll see on page 33 how the green line is their proposed traffic flow right at Dawson, which is just barely to the west of the subject. The traffic is intended to flow upwards towards, up Panet to Marion. And basically, this section between Dawson and Lagimodiere here would be left almost as a tertiary section. So development potential for this site dropped as soon as those plans came into effect. And sure enough, nothing has happened with the site. The owner is sitting with a site that nobody's interested in developing. Now that plan is kind of in limbo right now, but I think it's still the specter of that possibility would probably affect any potential development plans. So that's kind of the background around the site-specific factors that we think have to be taken into consideration in the evaluation. So now if I can ask you to turn back to page 6, we as well have looked at industrial land sales, very close to the reference date April 18. And There's a graph on page 6 which summarizes, but I also have, as you go forward into the brief, you'll see photographs, aerial photographs of each property. So the first one is on Dugald, so just north of the subject near Panet, and it's an irregular shaped lot that's 0.85 acres, so 37,000 square feet. It's sold in 2016 for $4.05 a square foot. It's also zoned M3, so except for the fact it's irregularly shaped, we feel that's a decent comparison. The second comparison is on Camille Sis. It's in the St. Boniface Industrial Park. And it sold back in 2016 for $3.45 a square foot. It's 1.5 acres, also M3 zoned. And what you'll find is that in that industrial park, typically lands are selling for around $4 a square foot, coming up to the reference date. The next comparison is 2.75 acres, and it is well sold on Camille Sis, sorry, and it's sold for $4.18 a square foot. That's M2 zone. The fourth comparison we have is shown on page 9. It's off Nairn, just off Nairn, south of Nairn on Foster. And it's decent frontage along Foster. And it was sold in late 2017 for $6 a square foot. That's M2 zone. The next comparison is on Mission, like one of the city's comparisons, and this sold for in 2016 for $4 a square foot, zoned M3. The next comparison is actually in St. James, North St. James on Inksbrook, so it's not a great comparison. I'd give this less weight, and actually it's slightly impacted by the sloping down towards a retention pond. You'll see that on the picture on page 11. But in any event, that sold for lower at $3.16 a square foot. The last three comparisons are getting quite large, so I'm not going to put much reliance on those last three because they're getting to be over 4 acres at that point. The end result is the average sale price of these comparisons is $4.49 a square foot. Even doing a time adjustment, which I'm very cautious about because the time adjustments that we had been using up to the last reference date, I'm not sure if they're applicable really in the current reference date. I'll show you why in a moment. But in any event, if we had been using an increase of about 0.625% a month, and even if we apply that to these sales transactions to bring them up to a time-adjusted April 18 value, we're still around $5 a square foot. Now, I think what's interesting is, and one of the points I'm trying to make is that obviously something has been happening or not happening with this subject property because there's no interest to develop it. There's factors that the owner has communicated to me that make sense to the reason for that. And in the end, I'm not suggesting that this is a bad parcel of industrial land. It's an average parcel of industrial land. And I think what's interesting, Mr. Chairman, is if we go to the second last page of my presentation, you'll see a Winnipeg industrial market snapshot done by one of the local brokerage firms. And what this is basically dealing with is more improved properties, but they do have at the bottom, they have what the average sale price for industrial land in Winnipeg is. And you'll see that's $217,140 per acre. That equates to about $4.98 a square foot. If you recall what I mentioned, my time-adjusted average was of a number of land comparisons. It was $4.99 a foot. So it's corroborating basically our opinion of what an average industrial land in Winnipeg would command. The reason I have caution about that time adjustment, Mr. Chairman, is that if you go to the next page, we have the same analysis done by the same brokerage firm 2 years earlier at the last reference date. This is the very last page of our presentation. So it's contrasting what's on the second last page. And what's interesting is, despite the opinion that industrial land is always increasing, according to this brokerage firm, it's basically leveled off or slightly decreased. It seems counterintuitive at first, but when you really break down the data and you read between the lines of what we're being told about industrial land in Winnipeg, industrial land, industrial properties are doing great. But most of that activity is actually hovered around the city in the RMs. And when you break down what's actually happening in Winnipeg itself, most of the good land has been developed. There isn't a lot of shovel-ready land. The land that isn't developed that's selling now is oftentimes maybe not the prime. And so until Winnipeg actually starts preparing or having more shovel-ready land to go, I don't see, at least based on the data, the escalation that we had in the past. So when we look at all the land comparisons, including the cities, and we really understand some of the site-specific factors as far as size and location, and we take into account this specter that Marion may not have the traffic flow at this last leg as it did in the past, and we look to average sale prices across the city, I don't think there is a compelling evidence to suggest that this should come in more than the average. And for that reason, we've applied $5, again, the average, and supported by our comparisons, per square foot for the subject property, and that would bring the value to $200,000 even. There is the question of the sign that's in place. I think the city's added $1,000. I wouldn't disagree with that as a cost. I would suggest that if anyone was to pay what I believe is an average industrial sale price, they probably wouldn't want to be impeded in any way by anything else on the site. So I'm leaving the value at the $5 a square foot, $200,000, and I think that completes our presentation.
I thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Questions of the applicant?
I guess just one quick question. I know in your brief, page 31, talking about the project, from extending, I guess, Dougal to Marion, I guess.
Yeah.
So this, I'm just curious, so obviously, I know this is from 2015, I guess, so I guess there's been nothing recent, I guess. I know you said, it's not really, nothing's going on at the moment, so there's no more updates, I guess, on if there's any changes, I guess, something like that? Or?
No updates. I haven't heard that anything has changed from these plans, but certainly
Okay.
their target that was supposed to be by 2016, that's held back, obviously. I mean, they
Okay.
haven't even started the primary part, which is the overpass at Marion and Archibald.
Okay.
But if you follow this through, if you think that this is probably something that the city council is looking at, I certainly can understand the owner's trepidation about the effect of his land on that small section of Marion.
Okay, that's all the other questions I had, so thank you.
I thank you. Ray?
Yes, looking at your comparables, the first one is the only one that's similar in size, correct?
Yeah, the first, it gets larger as we go, so you're correct. The first two are probably the best.
And when I look at the picture, the first one was located, would you say that's not as desirable a location as the subject property?
Well, it's located in the St. Boniface Industrial, so I don't know if I would say that the location is any worse. I think the configuration of the site is questionable.
You don't think being on Marion Street is a plus?
Well, I would, certainly down by Archibald, but as I'm saying, the concerns about this one section between Dawson and Lagimodiere would leave it akin to this sort of location.
And all the other comparables are much bigger, and I think, as you said, the bigger the lot, the less per square foot.
That's right.
Generally speaking.
Yeah, no, all the things being equal, that's a general rule.
And also the other thing I want to ask you, you talked about the average size in the city of industrial land is 499. In your conclusion, I think you proceed that saying the
Yeah, that's
average
right.
for the city of Winnipeg is.
Yeah.
Now, what is the average size of industrial land in the city?
That's a good question.
Eh?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I'm assuming that, it's somewhere between that wide range that we have in sizes in our
Yeah,
comparisons.
so is this location, the size of this location, or the size of this property, would you say it's less than the average, based on your knowledge of industrial land?
I'd say average is typically 1 to 2 acres, and that's usually what you see for development in industrial. Probably 2 acres, I think, would be an average. So it would be less than average than that.
And this proposal that was made by the city and is now in limbo, I guess, but is it in limbo, is it dropped completely, is it?
I haven't seen any evidence it's dropped completely. Certainly the owner, when we talked to him about the assessment when it came out, that was the first thing he raised. But I didn't find anything about where it's at. So I assume it is in limbo. I think there definitely are plans to do the overpass at Marion and Archibald, and I would assume that the other plans around that are still in talks.
Yeah, there were a lot of objections to that by the residents.
Yes, yeah. And then that's what the article is about, that Matt Allard is saying, let's not go down this road. So, but no, I tried to find out if there was any word of it being scrapped. I haven't found that, so.
That's all my questions.
I thank you, Mr. Stein.
You mentioned in Winnipeg, there's not a lot of shovel-ready land. Would that push up the price of vacant properties within Winnipeg just because there isn't?
Yeah, that would be the assumption. I mean, when we look at all the facts like that, when we first start analyzing the industrial properties, I would think that. But then it wasn't corroborated by what we found from the brokerage firms that are saying actually industrial land in Winnipeg, not the RM, including the RMs or in the capital region, is fairly stable. So I'm not sure. But in theory, you're right. If demand is increasing and demand isn't going out to the capital region, then a limited supply should indicate a higher price.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Slaughter, I guess my colleague had mentioned there's only two that are probably, one is similar in size and the other one's just a little bigger. And they're coming in at, you have an adjustment for price-wise and time. And I think you mentioned 0.25, which would be, I think, 3% a year?
It was 0.625 per month.
Okay.
So it works out to,
0.625.
yeah, so it's
Okay.
7.5% per year.
Oh, okay.
And where that came from, Mr. Chair, is that in the previous cycles, we were looking at improved industrial properties and what seemed to be the increase. So with that time adjustment, I'm assuming the trajectory has stayed the same, but as I say, I'm now cautioned about that.
I think, summation if you want.
No, I'll just let the
Okay.
board
Okay.
take some evidence.
Mr. Slaughter, summation?
No, I think that's all, thank you.
Okay. So we'll go to item number 2 on the docket. So it's got a civic address of 690 Plesdays Road. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The roll number is 0609-292-4500. The address is 690 Pleasant Road, and the owner is the Manitoba Hydroelectric Board. The 2020 assessed value, based on the reference date of April 1st, 2018, is $1,118,000. Before I continue with my brief, I do have a recommendation on this property. And it's, I have just a breakdown of the recommendation. Thank you.
That's Katie.
So my recommendation is based on adjustment to the model rate we were using. We're using $1.27 for our model rate. However, it's based on other evidence and kind of comparables I could find. I feel 69 cents a square foot is more fair and in line. So that's the value I'm proposing is $606,000.
Thank you. Mr. Slaughter, in agreement?
Yes, we are, thank you.
Okay. Questions, panel members? None? No. Okay. Now we'll go to number 3. Ducal Road there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The roll number is 0605-0196-000. The address is Ducal Road, and the owner is 725 Planet Incorporated. The 2020 assessed value based on the reference date of April 1st, 2018 is $855,000. This property as well, I do have a recommendation for this as well. Break out or work out. I have some other ones too, so I don't know if I'll just take this, I guess. Or how would you like me to
We'll
do
let
it?
Katie get a little
Okay.
exercise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This recommendation is, again, just based on adjustment to our model rate. We were initially using a model rate of 0.62 at square footage of 1,389,211 square feet, which gave us our assessment of 855,000. I have recommending adjusting the rate to 55 cents a square foot. which would adjust our market value to $764,000.
Mr. Slaughter?
Client accepts.
Okay. Town members, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair?
Okay, we'll go to number 4 on the docket, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to ask for a confirmation on this assessment, if I may.
Alrighty. Matthew, if you don't mind, you can read that into the record then.
Just read the roll number and the value.
Yeah, read the file number, the roll number, and value.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the file number is 19-3792. The roll number is 0609346639. The address is Gabory Place. The owner is 1002480 Manitoba Incorporated. And the 2020 assessment value at based on Working State April 1st, 2018 is $259,200.
All right. You can leave that with us then. We'll go to Brunswick, 1231, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Chairman. The file number is 19-2417. The roll number is 0400288760. The address is 1231 Brunswick Street, and the owner is Palliser Furniture Canada Corporation. The 2020 assessed value based on the reference date of April 1st, 2018, $375,000. Property type is Vindu, vacant industrial property. It is zoned for M1 manufacturing light, and the land area is 46,923 square feet. If you look at page 2 of my brief, you'll just see a photo of the subject property. The two streets that this property intersects are on is Brunswick Street and Burnett Avenue. I didn't write that down on my initial, I apologize. So you'll see just kind of the shape and where the property is situated. I believe right below it is a hydro corridor as well. If you look at page 3 of my brief, you'll just see some information about the zoning. This is a particular property zone M1, manufacturing light, and just a brief description of what that entails. Page 4 of my brief is just information of the valuation summary. Again, this is just for vacant land, $375,000, and there are no recent sales on the property. If you look at page 5 of my brief, you'll just see a list of my land sale comparables. My comparables range in size from 10,601 square feet to 89,094 square feet. The zonings range from M1 to M2. If you look below, you'll see the sale details. Sale dates range from 2014 to 2016, and the sale prices per square foot range from $7.02 to $10.14 a square foot. And we are applying a model rate for this property at $7.99 a square foot at 46,923 square feet. Again, gives us $375,000 in set value per unit. If you look at page 6 of my brief, you'll just see some photos of the subject comparables or the comparable properties I've used. Above is a property on Hamel Avenue. Below is a property on Eagle Street. Again, they're similar in terms of shape of the subject property, as it is a bit irregular. Page 7 of my property, or my brief is comparable sale 3. It's exactly the same style shape. And this is on Murray Park Road, so it's a little bit further away from the subject property. And page 8 of my brief is my comparable sale 4. This is on Spears Avenue, just close to Lagimoye. And page 9 of my brief is just some classification liability allocation information. I'm just giving the breakdown of this, we're assessing at $375,000. And page 10 of my brief are just some information about the Municipal Assessment Act reserves. That is my presentation. I support to confirm the value of $375,000. Thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Slaughter, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few. Mr. Harling, the property is owned by Palliser Furniture, correct?
That is correct.
And the property just to the north of it is 90 Lexington. You're aware that that's also owned by Palliser?
I am aware of that, yes.
Yeah. And from your overhead photo on page 2, you agree that what this site partially is the access to 90 Lexington?
Yes, I don't dispute that, yes.
Do you envision any other development potential for this site?
I'm not aware of any potential development on the site, no, so.
And do you think it has potential for development, though? Do you think it's a good?
I mean, it is an oddly shaped parcel, and I understand, yes, it is owned by the same, cross street from Palliser, so, what they would use it for, no, I don't, have any, I don't disagree with you, that there might be some development potential, maybe, not as great as it were sold.
Okay, thanks. So I didn't have a chance to do a rebuttal for this, so I'll just ask a few questions, if you don't mind, about some of your comparisons. On page 5. The first one is 405 Hamel, and you have a overhead photo, but it's kind of tight on
Yeah,
the
sorry, I
top
should
of
have
these.
zoomed out more, sorry about that, yeah.
But you're aware that this property is in a predominantly single-family area, like it's surrounded by single-family development?
Yes, of that I am aware of that, yes, yeah.
And are you aware at the time of the sale, the property was part of a registered condominium plan that included the 2 adjacent properties immediately to the west?
I was not aware of that.
Okay. Would you agree, though, that if a property was already being considered by council for rezoning and at the time of purchase, that the development potential is likely high and that would influence the sale price?
It's possible. I mean, I know it didn't go through though, but yeah, I don't dispute that, so.
Okay. Similarly, the second comparison on Uville, it's surrounded again, well, to the west is industrial, but it's facing onto Uville. Across the street is all houses,
Yes,
single-family apartments to the south. It's got great frontage along Uville. You can see that from your overhead
There's good
map.
access there.
Would you agree that this, with zoning change, would be a very highly desirable single or multifamily residential development?
I think it's, yes, I think it's possible it could be more desirable.
Okay, thank you. And the last comparison, you have 48 Spears. You're aware that that was purchased in conjunction with 50 Spears to the north of it?
With the law there, I was not aware of that, that specifically. No.
Okay. That's all the questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mazzicott?
Or any of the comparable to mirror the subject property?
This Brunswick, they're not, the closest one I would believe would be probably Hamel. Again, this is in the cloud, so this is in St. Boniface, so it's not, you know, it's not like miles away, but it's not exactly, you know, very close either, I guess, so. Those would be the two, the closest two I would believe would be the Hamel and Newville. Spears Road is off of Lajimodi, so, again, a little bit further away as well, so.
That's all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan?
No questions, Mr. Chair?
Okay, I just have one, I guess, you have comparables here. You have 3 old sales and one that is old also. Is that no sales, no current sales?
Yeah, I'll be
or-
honest, I mean, when it comes to land sales, there's not a huge, you know,
Yeah.
amount of land sales in the market. Again, I tried to pick ones as close as I could that were to the subject property in terms of size, shape. So I guess I understand, yes, they're a bit older, so that's why I had chosen these again, so.
So I'm just looking at comparable number 4, and it's, you know, substantially smaller. And I see that the rate is, you know, $10.14, and you're using, you know, $7.99. So the economies of scale come into play in that.
Yes, it would, yes,
at that
yes.
point. Okay. I don't think I have anything more, so I thank you. Mr. Slaughter, your presentation?
Thank you. Actually, I do just have one last question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harling, the first question I asked was about the common ownership between the Palliser furniture plant at 90 Lexington to the north and the subject.
Okay.
And that this is actually an access point for the 90 Lexington.
Okay, yes.
If this were merged together, which is a common practice in the city with commonly owned adjacent properties, would there be any additional value inherent in this section for 90 Lexington?
Yeah, if there was a merge, like we would replot the way we portion it. It's possible we may consider it surplus land in this case, depending. Again, I don't know I'd have to, if we actually did, I don't know the specifics of it, but it's possible we really had there surplus land or potentially excess land. It depends on how, I don't know the land, the area again is, I think it's 46,000 square feet, 0.43 acres. I think we would value maybe surplus land, possibly, that's what would be my best guess, so.
Yeah. So usually the access points to an industrial property, the grassland surrounding that entry point, typically the city would add that as value?
Well, I guess it depends, I mean, for surplus land, we may have it assessed, but we may not add value to it possibly, so yes, so.
All right, that's fine, thank you.
Mr. Slaughter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the gist of our position in previous cycles and this cycle is what I was kind of alluding to there with Mr. Harling. You can see on page, well, first on page 2, you'll see a photograph, and this is taken from Brunswick, straight up, and it's the rear access point to the large manufacturing facility at 90 Lexington. And on page 3, you can see the overhead shot. It's kind of an irregular shaped lot. It's basically the access point and then some additional grassland that abuts the hydro line. I don't personally see any potential really for development of this, at least not without impeding the access to 90 Lexington, which kind of leads me to the hypothesis that I was mentioning to Mr. Harling. Typically, if this was part of 90 Lexington's roll number, it would just simply be considered part of the access. There would be no additional value applied to this. If Mr. Harling was correct, if there's a large section that somebody could arguably say, I could do something with that land. I could hive it off, I could develop it or something else, then there's an argument for excess land as opposed to surplus. But in a case like this, it's just kind of extra grass. And that leads us to our main position, that in our mind, land is, the value of land is really based on its utility. What can you do with it? What is somebody going to buy it for? And that's my concern about using certain comparisons when valuing other land, is that if a parcel of land is being purchased likely for a residential development, there's high density, multi-floor, multi-residential development, the value of the land can be enhanced, but it's dependent on that utility. In this case, I don't see those potentials. Now, I'll be frank, we as well don't have the strongest comparisons. It's hard to find good land comparisons of similar size, similar utility, all the other factors. We have our swath of industrial land, many of which are larger. But it brings me back to the point that there's nothing about this land I think would command anything above average. I'm not saying it's worthless, although if it was merged, as I think it should be with 90 Lexington, the effect of that would to make it worthless, or zero I should say. It would be part of the value of 90 Lexington, just as the other access point is. So I don't see any potential for this to be anything other than that. I don't see how we can rely upon sales of properties that are to be developed for multi-residential or industrial to be used as a basis for value here. I think the value here should be relatively nominal. But we're using, again, an average industrial sale price in our mind. It is actually supported by other irregularly shaped industrial lands such as 999 Dugald and the first of the Cameo Cis properties that sold for $405 a square foot and $345 a square foot. So we're still above those, and I don't think we're being unreasonable. So I asked the board then to consider $5 a square foot to the subject property. And I don't think there's anything else that we need to bring into evidence at this point. So I'll leave it there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Harling?
No, I think we don't have any questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Messick?
Is the land owned by 90, or the adjacent property?
Yeah, Palliser Furniture.
Owns both of them?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And you don't think that it can be developed?
Not in my humble opinion. Not without impeding that access point anyway.
That's all my questions.
All right, Mr. Silen?
My question is, page 3 of the picture here,
Yeah.
just, I'll call it south of the actual property, there's a residential area,
Yeah.
but there's blue lines. cut through here, what's the parcel land between the residential area and these blue lines here?
It's actually, I think on this docket, it's a hydro line corridor.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, it's owned by Manitoba Hydro, and it kind of cuts through all the way.
Okay, does it, this path, the cars are parked in here too?
Yeah, that's part of it. Well, sorry, that is part of the hydro corridor. There are sections of that corridor actually that hydro doesn't own. So if you follow that line along, it'll be like that one roll number will be a section of corridor, and then there's actually a section that is owned by another party, probably that owner. In some cases, they're leasing. There's not much you can do on a hydro corridor, which is a big part of the discussion that we may have later. But one of the things that sometimes happens is that if somebody wants to park underneath, hydro will say, okay, with these stipulations. And so either this is separately owned or it's a leased part of that hydro corridor. And then it just keeps going all the way up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Slaughter, I'm looking at page 3, and I just want to get an idea in regards to, where the subject property is in the red,
Yep.
right? Now, where is Lexington? Is it?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's further to the north, but
It is, yeah.
this property is called 90 Lexington here, this house.
Okay, so that's Lexington there.
Yeah, that's the civic
Lexington.
address.
Okay, so is that north there, that way?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's correct.
okay. So, so I'm just looking at the picture and the red dot there. Now, are those vehicles up north there, or what is that?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
staff parking.
And so this is part of the complex, you said Palliser?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that's their building there in the brown?
Yeah,
Okay, so and that's their parking lot.
yes.
So so in front of the subject property, does Brunswick go straight through? Or is that a gravel road or?
No,
what?
well, you can see the photograph here on page
Well,
2.
yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, it is paved, but it just basically goes right into the property called 90 Lexington, the Palliser
Okay,
Furniture.
so, and to, I guess the west of the subject property, what exactly is that there?
To the west, it looks like just separately owned small industrial developments
Okay.
going along
Okay.
Burnett.
So, and the people, Palliser owns this lot?
This particular lot we have in appeal is owned by Palliser Furniture,
Yeah,
as is the property to the north, which is called 90 Lexington.
yeah. So, what about to the east there in the brown? Is that, is that vacant land also?
Up
Belongs
to-
to somebody else?
This
Yeah.
section here? Yeah, that's part of the roll number for 90 Lexington.
Oh, for Lexington, okay.
Yeah, and I think that comes to the point, like, this extra land is not being used, so one could say, well, it has value, but the thing is that value is dependent upon somebody being able to use it. And somebody
Absolutely.
using it would
Yeah.
require easements across the parking lot and impediments possibly to the operation of Lexington.
It's like an acre of land that really is, what do you do with that? You can't be residential.
Yep,
I don't
exactly,
think.
yeah.
And residential is to the south with, Red Oak and Mahoney Drive and Tanya.
Yes.
Okay, so it becomes, like almost an offshoot of Lexington.
That's exactly my point.
So why wouldn't they consolidate or,
That's probably coming, I wouldn't
Yeah.
doubt, I mean, the city has been more and more merging sites like this.
Yeah.
And my whole point is, once they do that, it's not like there's going to be, what's the value here?
well, it's-
$375,000 added to 90 Lexington, it's just part of the economic unit.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
becomes part of it. Just like that land that you pointed out over here,
Yeah,
same thing.
okay.
And that's my whole point, so I think I'm actually I could have come here today saying $1, because it really should be part of 90 Lexington. But I'm not, I'm just saying that I think 375,000 is too high.
The other question was, and I think we're dealing with your evidence, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. There's a discrepancy in regards to the square footage.
Oh, okay.
You're at 47, and the city's at 46.
Oh, you know why, Mr. Chairman? Sometimes what I do is I translate it to acreage.
Okay.
And then I manually-
Due to the conversion?
Yeah, and I probably have a rounding error, so I would believe the city over me.
Okay. So that would change your value then?
A nominal, no.
Yeah, it'd be pretty good.
Okay, okay. Okay, summation,
No, good, thank you.
Mr. Slaughter?
No, that's fine, thank you.
We'll just go to item number 6. And Mr. Harleen, you can read the file number and the roll number because there's no civic address, okay, so.
Okay, thank you,
But
Mr.
it's item number 6.
Number 6, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The file number is 19-3174. The roll number is 0400703950. The owner is the Manitoba Hydroelectric Board. The 2020 assessed value based on reference date of April 1st, 2018 is $944,000. I do have a recommendation on this property. So initially, I'll kind of do a little just a explanation of my recommendation. This is a hydro corridor. This is your property. Again, we're using it. It's assessed at 283,989 square feet. We were using previously a model rate of $3.50 a square foot, which gave us the $944,000. I am proposing $2.10 a square foot, which gives us a revised assessment of $596,000.
Mr. Slaughter?
I was on the fence with this one, Mr. Chairman, but what I'll do is I'll accept, and thank you, Mr. Harlan, for that. I'm going to accept Mr. Harlan's recommendation, just with the caveat that when we describe these to owners, they sometimes may not agree, but then we just suggest it be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board.
Okay.
So I will accept, thank you.
Okay. Panel members, any questions?
No questions.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, item number 7.
He doesn't have magic either, yeah, okay. Okay, thank you, sure, I'll start the file number. The file number is 19-3183. The roll number is 14099991100. The owner is the Manitoba Hydroelectric Board. The 2020 assessed value based on reference date of April 1st, 2018 is $634,000. I do have a recommendation as well on this particular property. Sorry to correct here, so.
Yep.
Just a little bit of background of this property. Again, this is another hydro corridor, and we're using 211,398 square feet of area. We're using a model rate of $3.08 a square foot, which gave us the $634,000. I am proposing a revised rate at $2.45 a square foot, which would give us a revised assessment of $517,000.
Mr. Slaughter?
Accept, thank you.
All right. Panel members, any questions?
No questions.
Just a quick question. Sure. $3.10.
$2.75 is the, or $2.45 is the recommendation.
Okay, what was?
$3 was the initial, $3.
$3. Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to McDonald's Street, 465, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The roll number is 14003-080-100. The address is 465 Phillip Street. The owner is Her Majesty the Queen, Province of Manitoba. The 2020 assessed value based on the reference date of April 1st, 2018 is $984,000. I do also have recommendation on this property as well. Oh, that's so happy, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, so again, a little background about this recommendation. There's no, I haven't made any adjustments to the actual model rate we're using. We were using $5.05, that's the same. However, I'll just kind of let you go to page 4 of my brief, just to kind of give you information. If you look at the bottom of page 4, you'll see a cost report of the detached structures. The parcel land question, if you look on page 2, I didn't mark it out unfortunately, but you'll see kind of like a little square with little lines across it. That's the two piece of property that are within this appeal are that one, as well as if you look further above, there's kind of like a little park with some trees and a little concrete view. That's also part of this particular.
Sorry.
It's this one right here. It's this piece and this piece.
Okay.
Those are two on this. But the majority of the area is obviously in the lower portion of the, and that I believe it is a parking lot, I guess, or I just can't remember. Off the top of my head.
Sorry, which one was that?
The one it's right across from the casino. I just can't remember if this is a parking lot or not. I guess.
Yeah,
It is.
Part of it is the staff parking.
Staff parking. So basically, what the recommendation is for is, if you look again back on page 4, again we have a cost report for detached structures. We were assessing the asphalt and paving at 150,000 square feet at $3.24 a square foot at 67% depreciation. So I'm adjusting that this detached structure because I was looking at our previous assessment and we were actually, the depreciation was higher last cycle, so it hasn't, I don't believe it's increased in value. So my recommendation is based on adjusting the 160,000 we had assessed previously for the asphalt to 113,000. So that being said, if you look above, we're at the 824,000 plus 113,000 gives us the 937,000. Sorry, you kind of just
Mr. Slaughter?
We accept, thank you.
Okay. Panel members, any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
No questions, Mr. Chair?
Okay. We'll go to number 9, Redwood Avenue.
Hey, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, let me get prepared. Sorry, I have to go real quick though.
Yeah, thank you. Much appreciated. I can't keep up with you.
Yeah, I know I'm full. Okay. The roll number is 14041637000. The address is Redwood Avenue. The owner is 100198836 Manitoba Limited. The 2020 assessed value based on reference date of April 1st, 2018 is $770,000. The property type is Vindu or vacant industrial. It is zoned for M2 manufacturing general. And land area is 90,564 square feet. If you look at page 2 of my brief, you'll just see a photo of the subject property. To the south is Redwood Avenue, and on the east side is actually Bentall Street. I apologize, I didn't write the streets, address, the street names there, so you'll see it has access on both sides. Page 3 of my brief, just some information about the zoning. And the zone is M2 manufacturing general, and just a brief description about general manufacturing general zoning. Page 4 of my brief, just some information about that there are no recent sales in this property, and we're currently just assessing a land at $770,000. Page 5 of my brief, just some information about my land sale comparables. You'll see the land area of the subject property is 90,564 square feet. You'll see Land sale comparables range from 59,881 square feet to 319,276 square feet. The zonings are M1 through M2, and there's one that is M3. You'll below see some information about some of the land influences on the comparables. And even further below, you'll see the sales details. You'll see some sale ranges from 2014 to 2016. And you'll see the rents, the sale price per square foot range from $6.47 a square foot to $8.68 a square foot. For this particular property, the subject property, where you're applying a model rate of $8.50 a square foot, again, which gives us our $770,000. Look on page 6 of my brief, you'll just see some pictures of my comparables. Page 6, we've already seen that comparable at Hamel Avenue. Page 7 is on Burroughs Avenue and Dorset. It's fairly close to the subject property in terms of size and location as well. Page 8 of my brief is comparable number 3. This is also close to the subject property, however it is quite a bit larger at 360,000 square feet. I was just showing it because it's similar in terms of shape, and it is a site that has some issues with contamination and such. So, and page 9, I believe we've also seen this comparable. This one's on mission, so a little bit further away from the subject property. Page 10 of my brief is just some information about the classification liability. Again, just we're assessing this on land only, $770,000. And page 11, 12 of my brief is just some information about the Municipal Assessment Act reserves. That's my presentation, and I ask the board to bring it down. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Slaughter, questions?
I do have some rebuttal, Mr. Chairman, but just one question. Mr. Harling, with regards to your comparisons, number 2 that you mentioned in Easter, you're aware that that was a sale in conjunction with an adjacent property, 879 Key Wayton?
I didn't see anything about any sales where it was like a multi-role sale, so was there anything? Okay, I wasn't aware of that if that's the case.
Okay,
but,
no, that's fine. Just wanted to see if you're aware. That's all the questions, thank you.
You had some well, we'll see if our vendors, Mr. Mazacott, any questions of the assessor?
No questions.
Kent, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Slaughter, you have rebuttal?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. I just wanted to bring a little bit more attention to a couple of the comparisons from the city. So number 1, we talked a bit about in the last presentation. It's a property on Hamel. And you will see an overhead photo, and this kind of shows it better with the residential to the north. And there's the city councilman that's included here on page 3. At the bottom of, in the middle of page 4, you'll see the history of the site that the owner at the time had brought forward in late 2011 a proposal to rezone this to residential multifamily. It's a great location for multifamily residential development with the density that it's attained. There could be great value to the site. And at the time of the sale, I think the request was still going on. This is pulled as of 2016, and council is still deliberating. There was asked for extensions. The point being that at the time of the sale in 2014, this kind of path was underway, and what I'm envisioning is that the purchaser of the site was hoping for just this, development as multifamily residential. And in that way, I don't think it's maybe the best comparison to the subject property. I think there are other factors that were motivating the sale. So that's just a little bit of background on that one. The second comparison, if you go forward to page 8, there's an aerial photo of the second comparison. It is in Inkster Park. It's 1881 Burroughs. It was purchased from Morgard Corporation, who sold both the property adjacent at 879 Key Wayton and this land to an owner as one purchase. And the owner quickly realized the development potential of this because it's right off of Key Wayton. It's just off of Key Wayton on the edge. And it was right after purchase they developed it as a self-storage facility. It's a very good site, I think. It was part of an overall purchase, and I think there was a recognition of the great utility from this site. I'm not 100% certain that we would instantly apply that to the subject property further into the park, but in any event, that's the background on 1881 Burroughs. There's not much to add. Mr. Harling mentioned the other sale in Inkster Park it's at a corner lot at Dunlop and Hutchings. You can see it in the aerial photo. And it sold for $6.89 a square foot. And I talked about the last comparison mission earlier. This is a property that had been remediated and fenced when it was resold and quickly developed as a warehouse. Just background information. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Harlan, any questions of the rebuttal?
No, I think that's okay. I think it's-
Mr. Massacott?
No questions.
Mr. Sudan?
No questions?
I have none other than, no, I don't think I have, no. Okay, Mr. Slaughter, your presentation?
Thank you, Mr.
Or-
Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, so in our,
Did we get a chance to question?
I don't think you quite
Mr.
did,
Sir?
it's right there.
No, I don't think, you haven't questioned the assessor?
oh, yeah, I didn't really have any except about the Burroughs sale.
Oh, the sale, yeah.
That's all.
Mr. Mazzafat, any questions?
No
Okay.
questions.
Mr. Stilling?
I'm good, thank you.
I just had a couple. I guess comparable 1 and comparable 4 are in St. Boniface, whereas the subject is, I guess you can call it Inkster,
Yeah.
you know, so do you think by using the ones in St. Boniface that they're similar, or, you know, are they inferior or superior or the same?
Well, again, the reason I chose those ones, I understand that they're not the exact same location. I'll be honest, there's not a lot of land sales, so again, I'm
Yeah.
trying to use ones similar in size and, you know, zoning and influences as close as I could, so I guess I'm not putting as much weight on those ones as I would like the ones that would be in Inkster Industrial. I understand, like, you know, the one on Burroughs, Mr. Slaughter has information about it, and I understand the other one too. It's a bit larger, also in Hutchings, so, but again, they're close to the subject property, so that's why I had to use those two, so.
So, you know, like I'm just looking at the comparables, and I guess, does that come into play in regards to what is extracted from the model? Like, the model produced the $8.50. Now, are these, you know, comparables, are they part of that?
Yeah, when we're doing our model, when we're adjusting the model, we'll review recent sales in the area. So if we see a sale that's, you know, to support our model, we'll say, oh yeah, well this occurred, so we'll say, you know, this sale supports it. So yeah, we'll use these kind of sales to use our, to justify our model, yeah.
So by putting this in there, you're trying to justify the models of
Yeah, exactly, the
of
model,
850.
yeah, the model rate we have applied,
So,
you know.
so these sales could be part of the.
Yeah, exactly. We use like actual sales to generate our model. Again, it's just not, like, there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Yeah.
I don't know everything myself, to be honest, so, yeah.
Because sometimes we see, you know, where they, you know, just come out with the model and say, that's it.
Yeah, I know, and I know some cases, you know, there's some, yeah, everything's, again, that's why we'll make adjustments if there's issues and the other things that come into play, so, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Slaughter, I think we're ready for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on page 2, we see a photograph of the property. It has been up for, there's been no interest for development in this property for a while. On page 3, we can see its location. It's at the edge of Inkster Park on the southern end. It's right across from Sicily. And I don't think that fact necessarily has an impact, but it may, being right across from the school grounds. So it sat undeveloped for all this time. It is at the corner of Bentall and Redwood. The property, you know, nothing physically has changed, and the current assessment of $770,000 represents a 70% increase over what it was last cycle. And that was the first concern that our owners had, and then we looked at this. And now, Mr. Harling, I apologize, my initial valuation, I was thinking of rate, I think I mentioned at $6 a square foot.
Yes, I believe that's
And,
correct.
and what happened since then, as I dug into the evidence more, I had changed my mind, and actually I'm at $7.
Okay.
So what that means is I as well am requesting quite an increase over what it was last time. But, you know, the fact remains that nothing has physically changed with this site. On page 6, we go through, we have again our swath of industrial land values. And I think what I'll do, instead of going through each one, is just hone in on what I think are the comparisons that we should focus on. So number 3, I think, is an interesting comparison as far as being a similar sized M2 zoned industrial lot, although the difference is this is not being in the Inkster Industrial Park, it's in the St. Boniface Industrial Park. And it sold at $4.18 a square foot in late 17. I would propose that the subject property should be somewhat higher than that. I don't know about double, which is what the $8.50 a square foot the city has on it. I don't think that's appropriate. But I think Inkster Park typically will perform at about $1 or more greater per square foot than St. Boniface. The next comparison is just outside of Inkster Park. This is in the Inksbrook area, just to the north. I had mentioned the sale before. I'll show you an overhead photo of it on page 11. So it's just north of Inkster on Inksbrook, and it's on a retention pond. And what's happened, Mr. Chairman, is that because of the stretch of land around the pond sloping down, the city had agreed to decrease the assessable area of this lot from 135,000, and we'll see this in Mr. Harling's evidence perhaps later today, or we may have already, to 91,000 square feet. So this property, the usable area is actually 91,000 square feet, and if we use that as the denominator, the per square foot rate that I show of $3.16 a foot actually becomes, I believe it's $4.36 a square
I
foot.
believe so, yes. In that
Yeah.
range, yeah, roughly, yeah.
So I think that's very interesting as well. So that's now taking into consideration basically eliminating the deficiency and bringing it to a very good comparable in my mind. So again, that should read 91,000 square feet at $4.36 a square foot.
That's correct.
And then the third comparison is just below that. It's 1196 Fife. This is located, again, in the Inkster Park region. You'll see it on page 12. It's located just north of Church on the west side of Fife. A good rectangular site. It is a little bit larger than the subject property, and it sold back in 2013 for $5.29 a square foot. Now, I've mentioned before about a caution on time adjustments, because we take a time adjustment and assume a straight trajectory, but I don't think that's the case in any event. We would be somewhere around $7 a square foot for this site, I think, if we time adjusted based on my 0.625 per month. It shows here 7.27%. Sorry, $7.27 a square foot. So when we look at these three comparisons, we'd be higher than St. Boniface. I think the Inksbrook is an interesting comparison at 436, and I'd be cautious about the time-adjusted result, but it's hovering around $7 a square foot. What that leads us to believe, and also taking into account that the property on Burroughs was purchased alongside 879 Keewaydin and quickly developed because of its location on a high-traffic corridor as a storage facility, I think that's a superior property. I think all of the evidence, in my mind anyway, would point to something a little less than the $8.50 the city's using, and I feel comfortable around $7 a square foot. And I do admit that this is a sizable increase over what I believe both parties had thought last cycle, but I do think it's supported by the evidence today. So I'll just leave it at that, Mr. Chairman, that I think I ask the board to consider $7 a square foot for this site, which would total $640,000 as the assessed value.
Thank you. Mr. Harling, questions?
No, I think I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Massacott?
No questions.
Kent?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
I just have one. I guess in your presentation, Mr. Slaughter, I think, is this the property here in 2019 on page 19?
Yeah, that's the 2018-19 assessment.
Okay.
That's where I developed that, when we look at this, the increase that's being proposed is is 70%, and I just thought, wow. So I'm still proposing a sizable increase, but I feel comfortable explaining that to the owner because I think the evidence today supports the value that I'm suggesting.
All right, summation to your,
No, I think I'm okay
Mr.
with the
Slaughter,
report.
we're gonna take about a 5-minute break. You guys probably need it, or?
I'm good with everything. That's all.
Okay, we have to. Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. Okay, we'll call the hearing back to order, and we're gonna go to number 10, no civic address, but Mountain Avenue.
Yes, correct, yes.
So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The roll number is 14041568000. The address is Mountain Avenue. The owner is FTCN General Partner Incorporated. The 2020 assessed value based on reference date of April 1st, 2018 is $831,000. I do have a recommendation for this particular property I proposed.
Thanks.
Thanks, Katie.
So I'll just give a little background of what I did with this, their recommendation. The subject property is 83,071 square feet. We were planning a model rate of $9.10 a square foot. So I'm adjusting that to, I feel, to $8.60 a square foot. It's based on, I'm basing on similar, that's other the comparable on Burroughs, the one I had in my previous, I also have it here in Burroughs. I feel they're very close, and I mean, it's slightly larger, the one on Burroughs, but the one in the subject property, but I feel it's very similar in terms of size and, you know, in shape. So that's why I kind of put some weight on that, why I use that comparable, as kind of the, why I use the 860. And also, if you look below, you'll see other building at 54,000. This is also like similar to another property I'd spoken with the detached structures. If you look on actually just page 4, just to give you a little bit of background. There's a cost report for all the different detached structures we have in the parcel, such as like a chain link fence, parking lot surface, asphalt. So we had a total of 75,000. Now again, this is a similar issue where I was looking at this last cycle, and some of the depreciation actually has gone up. So I thought, well, this is incorrect. It shouldn't have went up because obviously it's, you know, it wouldn't get more value. So so I've adjusted that to the last cycle, which was at 54,000. So with that being the case, I recommended the value of $768,000.
And that takes into account the structure? at
Yes.
54?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Mr. Slaughter?
Yeah, we'd like to proceed, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
no problem. I'll
All right,
continue,
the floor is still yours.
Yes, I'll continue with that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll leave this up, I forget. So the property type is a Vindu or vacant industrial. It is zoned M2 manufacturing general, and the land area is 83,071 square feet. If you look at page 2 of my brief, you'll just see a picture of the subject property, where it is in relation to Mountain Avenue. I don't have it in the picture, but I believe right across the street it's the Winnipeg Free Press building right across from it. So, page 3 of my brief is just some information about the zoning information. It's zoned M2 manufacturing general, and again just a brief description of what that is. Page 4 of my brief, which I had spoken to previously, just gives us information about the cost valuation summary. Again, I'm using my revised value here at for the total depreciation cost of all the detached structures at $54,000, not $75,000, and the land value is actually going to be $714,000, not $756,000, which gives us again the estimated market value of $768,000. There are no recent sales that I could find in this particular property. I don't know if I'll go too much into my comparable. Well, I guess I could just briefly talk my comparables again, because that's what I was basing my recommendation on. So again, the comparables, they're almost actually identical to the previous parcel actually, so I don't think I'm going to go too much into detail with them. Again, they range from 35,000 square feet, 263 to 89,000 square feet. They're M1 through M3. The sale dates range from 2014 to 2016. Sale prices range from $6.47 square foot to $8.79 square foot. We were applying again a model rate of 910, but I'm using again my recommendation of 860. Just pages 6 through 9 are just again, which is my subject comparables, which we have seen in the previous brief. And again, just page 11 and 12 is some information about the Municipal Assessment Act reserves. That is my presentation, and I ask the board to confirm the value of $768,000. Thank you.
I thank you, sir. Mr. Slaughter, questions of the assessor?
Just the one, thank you, Mr. Harley, and basically it's very similar to the presentation on the last one. It'll be the same for me. The different comparison you have here, I think is actually one of ours as well. Soto, number
Yes.
3, and just to confirm, that's about a third of the size of the subject.
That is correct, yes.
But that's located in the Murray Industrial Park, a very similar sort of industrial park.
Yes, Murray Park region, yes, a
Yeah.
little bit further away though, so yes.
Yes, yeah. Okay, that's all the questions, thank you.
I thank you, Mr. Massacott.
I have no questions.
Kent, do you have any questions?
You have the detached structures here, and you have, for the chain link fence, you have 71%, I think that's depreciation.
Yes, 71, yes.
Okay, and you had parking surface lot, 80%.
80%, yes, correct, yes.
Plus metal, fence at 71%, paving asphalt at 50%, and the floodlights at 50%. So, when you decreased the price from 75,000, you said it was 80%, to 54,000.
That's correct, yes.
What's the depreciation that you used here?
I believe going across the board, I apologize, I didn't actually write the actual depreciation number down. I did write the actual values down, but I didn't write the actual depreciation down, unfortunately. I believe they were like, the first one, the chain link fence was at, I believe it was at 80, so that should, I think it's roughly 80% roughly. And the metal fence, the third one below, that one was actually, I don't know, that one's really high, I think it's at 7,000, 71%. So it wasn't so much the actual percentage, it was the actual rate we were using. It was like, we're here, we have 95, I think I was at, it's something quite a bit lower at like 50 or 30, I unfortunately I don't know off the top of my head, but it's 7,000 on there, but it's actually $1,000 of actual value is what I adjusted it to, so, or what it was previously, so if you just want, I can just kind of give you the numbers if it helps, but at the top it was 5,000, so it's 3,000 for that, for the adjustment for the first one.
So, okay,
Below it's still 6,000, that was the same, there was no issues with that one.
okay,
The one below the metal fence, that was at 7,000, now it's 1,000.
1,000?
Yeah. And the asphalt paving was at 54,000, now it's at 41,000. And then the last with the floodlights was at 3,000, it's at 1,000 now.
3,000?
1,000.
1,000,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Pretty good shadow, so. Might be getting a little bit off.
We can work to 52.
Okay, maybe maybe it should be 52,000 then. Might be a bad correct me. Yeah, I believe it is 52 actually.
52,000?
52, yeah, so it should be 52, so I apologize. So that would make the recommendation 2,000 less than it was previously.
766.
766, that's correct, sorry. Thank you.
66? One further question.
Sure.
Is this piece of property across from the big free press? What did you say is right across the
I believe
street?
that is correct, Mr. Slaughter, if you, is that?
It's owned by the Free Press.
Okay, it is owned by the Free Press, that's what I correct, yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. So,
Thank you. Appreciate it. That's all. Any questions, Mr.
Thank
Chair?
you. Mr. Horling, I guess, I'm looking at how the structure has been depreciated, okay? So this is quite old, is it not? Because you're using, 71 and 60, 71, 80, 71, 80.
yes, it is quite old, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
I mean, again, like I might have to, relook at this again and just kind of look at some of the numbers, because again, I didn't, I had put this initially, but I didn't realize that we were, like, I didn't realize there was some, I'm not saying errors, but there was just some adjustments that could have been further made, so I'll have to maybe go back.
Well, I'm just, like, you're using those, and I guess that was on your cost basis, and you probably referred to, I guess, Marshall and Swiss.
That would we use,
Okay,
yes.
but, if you look at the original, I guess, depreciated cost of 75,000, and you're coming to 54%, it's only $21,000, which is 28%.
Okay, I see what you're saying,
Okay,
yes, okay.
so, the mathematics don't really work out.
Yeah, I believe there's something I'll have to
Yeah.
look at this again,
Okay.
yeah, so, yeah, no, and I am aware of that, yes, yes, yeah, I know, I understand, yeah, so.
You have 80% depreciation or 71%,
Yeah.
and you're at 28%.
Yeah, I know, it's, the numbers are a bit whack.
Okay, okay. Okay. Mr. Slaughter, your presentation.
Thanks. I had some rebuttal, Mr. Chairman, but I'll just skip it because there's only the one different comparison than the last time. Really, we're talking about a very similar situation as we did with the last property. On page 2 of my direct evidence, you'll see a picture of the property. So I'll just add a couple, there's some questions about the nature of the property. I'll just fill those out.
This is the parking lot for the free press?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's additional parking for
Okay.
the staff at Free Press. Free Press doesn't quite have enough. You can see it at the top of page 3 across the street. So it's really, part of that economic unit, really. There's obviously value to it, to the Free Press, but at the same time, to assume that this could be developed, as some of the other comparisons that have been developed very quickly, like 1881 boroughs, would impede ultimately the value of the Free Press building, so we have to be cautious about that. This is necessary for that economic unit. So besides that background, it's otherwise, as you can see, a rectangular lot. It's not a corner lot, it's just south of Mountain, on the south side of Mountain. We've gone through now a number of comparisons. And I guess at this point I'd just like to summarize. We have 2 comparisons, one in Inkster Park, one just outside of Inkster Park, that we feel are quite good. And I'll just remind the board again of those 2. Inksbrook, which when you deduct the unusable portion ends up being 91,000 feet, so very equal to size of the subject property. And it sold for $4.36 a square foot. Okay, so now there's the first one, $4.36. The second that we have is on Fife, right around the corner from the subject actually, so a very good comparison. It is a bit larger. It's 134,000 square feet as opposed to 91,000, but not materially different. It was an older sale that we have time adjusted. It was $529 at the time of sale. We time adjusted that with some caution to be in the low 7s. Okay, so now to summarize again, 436 foot, around just over 7 foot. The third is the city's comparison. On Hutchings, this is a larger site, but it's a corner site. A positive and negative adjustment in my mind. And it sold for $689 a square foot. 436, 727, 686. And then the last is Burroughs. And Burroughs, I think, is a superior property. The speed at which it was developed, I think, is evidence of that. It was also, in a way, a motivated sale because it was an acquisition along with 879 Key Waiton. In any event, it is still part of the evidence before the board. It's a higher amount at 868. 436 to 868. My point is that I think we should use caution about taking that superior highest sale and using that as evidence, as the only evidence, which would equal the city's value of $860 a square foot. In my mind, we have to look at everything. And I feel that $7 a square foot is supportable and fair. My last point, similar to what I mentioned last cycle, Mr. Chairman, is that, and this is something that part of my job requires me to explain to the owners, the assessment as it stands was a 100% increase over the assessment last cycle. It doubled. You'll see the assessment actually on page 19 again. It was $414,000. So it had doubled. And even what the assessor is proposing, and thank you again, Mr. Harley, for looking at that, by adjusting the improvements, is still 78% increase. What I'm proposing is even a sizable increase. But again, I think it's something fair and supportable for me to explain to the owner. The only addition to that is, like the city, we would add a depreciated cost for paving and improvements. I detail that on page 16. And we, as well as Mr. Harling, questioned the model's original cost that was applied. I'll make a long story short. We went through our analysis and came out at $62,000. I think Mr. Harling's was at $54,000. I'm a bit lower on the land value, though. Altogether, I still ask the board to consider our revised value, which is $7 a square foot, plus the cost of, depreciated cost of improvements, which would total up to be $644,000. And again, that's still around a 50% increase over the assessment last cycle. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Harling,
I
questions?
have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Mazakat?
No questions.
Mr. Celan?
What was the cost of the depreciated asset or cost?
My depreciated cost was $63,000.
63,000?
Yeah, and I think Mr. Harling had revised at 54.
54, or 52, 54, I can't remember now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Summation, either party?
No, I'll let the other speak.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay, we'll go to number 11 on the docket. No civic address. Haggard?
Haggard.
Haggard?
I think it's Haggard, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roll number is 14098771300. The address is Haggard Avenue, and the owner is 2113686 Manitoba Limited. The 2020 assessed value based on the reference date of April 1st, 2018 is $597,000. I do have a recommendation for this property.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
Get a little background. Actually, I was gonna say this. Kind of the next three properties are actually all like right beside each other, so this is gonna kind of pertain to all of them. So I'll just kind of give a little more information about this one, so I'm going forward with as much. Actually, I'll just give a copy of. I only have 3 and 4 shades of these to the board. This is just a picture of the subject property, just to kind of give you a little more information so you can kind of see it. So kind of have these other get to you guys.
Thank you.
There.
Thank you.
There, so. Sorry, I don't have the copies. Sorry
That's
about that. So
fine.
it's just, I'm sure you have this in your brief, I'm pretty sure, yeah. So this particular property we're dealing with is if you look at the top, it's this one right here, right above the retention pond. If you can kind of see, it's this one right here.
Yeah.
So this is the property we're talking about here. And as Mr. Slager mentioned before, there's a property right down here below here. This is one we use as a comparable. Further below, and there's actually an adjustment made to this particular property due to there's space, the land closer to the end of the retention pond, they can't use it anymore due to it's sloping, so they can't use it. So there's an adjustment made for this. Now these 3 properties here as well, they're having the same issues because it's around the pond as well. So my recommendation is actually based on adjusting based on the factor that there's a certain portion of land they can't use anymore. So. So basically what I've done is the area of this property is 108,521 square feet. We were using a model rate of 550. So I have adjusted the model rate to $4.65 a square foot. Again, this is kind of, to support this, I'm using the sale of that property below. Again, it's really close to the subject property. It's very close in size, so that's the justification of why I made this recommendation, from 597,000 to 505,000. So.
Am I reading something wrong
Yeah.
here?
Which property are we talking about?
Am I on the wrong property?
maybe,
Yeah.
I have a difference
I
in
think
square
so.
footage.
What's the square footage you have in that one, sorry? or-
Okay, you handed out the
Oh.
one for
Oh,
108,000, okay?
Okay, that's gonna be
So
the other one. I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong recommendation. I apologize.
Okay.
Not a problem.
That, we can hang on to
Yeah,
that.
you hold on to
Okay.
that one, 'cause that one's coming
Okay.
up, so,
So which one is that? Is it item number what? Just offhand?
Well, I think you read the roll number, you were on the right track, but I think the
Yeah.
board is on the property that ends with 3420.
Isn't that not the
Just-
other code?
Just tell us, okay.
Okay, I think I see what I did. I think I grabbed
The
the wrong
square
one.
footage, this one here, the recommendation is incorrect, okay? So we'll just put this to the side.
Sure.
Give us the other recommendation of 89,347 square feet.
Okay, that one is,
Okay.
it's actually, that one's at $4.60, which gives us 411,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll give
That's
that
fine.
one. That's this
That's
one
fine.
here, sorry about that.
So, no, that's fine. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're right, I clearly had some of the
Okay,
stuff.
that's fine.
Sorry.
So we'll go to, okay, your rec, and I assume that this is correct. This is the 89,347, okay.
Yes.
You can take us,
Okay.
you can describe the rec.
Okay, this is, again, this is actually just, it's very similar to my last, when I was explaining about the other property. This one's like, right adjacent to that property, it's right in the corner. It's the same issues they're having, again, there's a portion of the land below they can't use due to the sloping and it's into the pond here, so I made that adjustment, yeah, so.
That's fine, and
Okay.
that's probably applicable to all of the properties,
Exactly,
okay?
exactly, yeah.
So, for the sake of arguing, et cetera, take us through the rec, and then
Sure.
for the next two, if they're recs, just
Okay.
take it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so the original assessment value for this one, we were using the model rate of $550. Again, I have adjusted it to $460. Again, this is based on the sale below the subject property. This is very similar in size, so that's why I have adjusted to $460 and using a revised rate, estimated market value of $411,000.
Mr. Slaughter?
We accept, thank you.
Okay. Any question, panel members?
No questions.
Okay,
No questions.
okay. We'll deal with number 12, and the last four digits are 1,400.
1,400, okay, I will, okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The file number is 19-3691. Roll number is 1409877140. The address is 232 Haggard Avenue, and the owner is 2113686 Manitoba Limited. The roll year, or the assessed value for the 2020 roll year, based on reference date of April 1st, 2018, is $900,000. I do have a recommendation for this property as well. Just make sure I have the right one this time. I'm gonna actually just have to quickly,
I think we have the wrong one here, okay? Oh, sorry, it's me.
Should be 232.
It's me, it's me, okay.
sorry guys. that's,
Okay.
right here, quickly.
Yes, now we got it, now we got it.
Yeah, me too.
I had the last one.
Got it.
Okay.
Adjust this actually, I kind of just went fly, so. I think that should be good. Okay, sorry about that, thank you.
You had stated the previous assessment that you had is 900,000.
That is correct.
And the recommendation?
The recommendation is, I'm revising the rate, I unfortunately crossed it off there, so I apologize, because I didn't have it, I just kind of changed it. We were originally at $5 at 180,044 square feet, which gave us the $900,000. I've adjusted that rate to be $4.50 a square foot at 180,044 square feet, which gives us a revised estimated market value of $804,000.
Mr. Slaughter?
We accept, thank you.
Okay, so it's, panel members okay?
Okay.
Actually, I'm just trying to sort this.
Sorry, sure.
we're at 232 Haggard.
Yes.
It was originally 900,000.
Correct.
You're at a price of $5.
That is correct.
Why would
You
you
should.
not 450?
Or the square footage was.
You know,
800.
4,000.
That's correct.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, let's go to the last one, and,
I already have that, so.
yeah, it's the last four digits,
Okay.
1300.
Uh,
And we have the rec, I guess?
Yes, you do. I'll just read quick go through it. The file number is 193683. The roll number is 14098771300. The address is 0 Haggard Avenue, and the owner is 2113686 Manitoba Ltd. The 2020 assessed value based on record date of April 1st, 2018 is $597,000. Again, I have the rec, you have, the recommendation is at $505,000, and that is at $4.65 a square foot.
Mr. Slaughter?
We accept, thank you.
All right. Mr. Slaughter, thank you for your attendance, and you know some of the results, so the rest will follow.
Okay.
So thank you for your attendance. Mr. Harling, I think that about cleans up everything.
I believe it does.
Okay, so thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
That's Friday.
Yes. So, I'm going to see you next week, but thanks to everyone. Have a great weekend.
Yes, you.